Lupin and Jigen infiltrate NASA, hoping to find and destroy a microfilm that can turn coal into diamonds. Under the names Ball McCartney and Orange Star, no prizes for getting that reference, they get past security despite their hiccups. Unfortunately for them, while they find a diamond, the microfilm is gone. Meanwhile, Zenigata is starting to have troubles with his pursuit of Lupin, hallucinating him at every corner. An all-ramen diet probably doesn't help that either. Back with Lupin, he's tracked down the rival thieves to San Francisco. He just needs to figure out his next move. The thieves sneak into Zenigata's room as he sleeps and perform some dental surgery to hide the microfilm in his tooth. The thieves then meet with their boss and confirm the microfilm's location, but they've been duped as the boss is a disguised Lupin. Knowing what they know, the gang keep tabs on Zenigata, watching as he heads to a clinic. Zenigata explains his problems to a doctor, feeling that Lupin is watching him at every turn. Couldn't tell you why. The doctor diagnoses him with depression and gives him a brief round of CBT. Zenigata feels reinvigorated, but Lupin appears behind him. Thinking it's another hallucination, he runs away and hijacks a taxi to escape. The irony of the gang chasing Zenigata isn't lost on them. Jigen shoots out a tyre, but the chase continues on. Zenigata loses them briefly, but they catch up to him in a plane, failing to notice a barn in front of them in time. Zenigata escapes to a tunnel in a tractor, taking the route given into the ever-classic painted tunnel in a cliffside. The rival thieves catch up to everyone and take Zenigata with Lupin clinging on. They throw dynamite to take care of him, but Fujiko, who's now working with the thieves, warns them not to underestimate Lupin. Lupin is in agreement as he jumps aboard, and the thieves are disarmed by Jigen. Fujiko explains that she just wanted to use the microfilm at least once to test it out, trying to tempt Lupin into it. Not that this matters, as Zenigata sneezes out the microfilm and it lands in the water. Lupin doesn't mind, seeing how he wanted to destroy it anyway, due to an easy diamond source potentially devaluing his own collection. Zenigata is also pet backup and expresses his raison d'etre of arresting Lupin as the chase continues. Something of a self-contained episode here, as Lupin's heist is almost secondary, which is funny to think about when it involves infiltrating NASA. I feel the focus is more getting into Zenigata's mind to a degree, showing that even if it's his lifelong goal, his arrest of Lupin does get to him sometimes. In Jamaica, the tycoon Howard Heath announces his engagement to Fujiko. Zenigata is convinced that Lupin's jealousy will get the better of him and sets up security detail in the form of a face mask sucking device. The security realise too late that Zenigata approached them from the wrong direction. Howard arrives to meet Fujiko and threatens Zenigata with litigation if he uses the mask sucker on him. He then approaches Fujiko and tells her he can't marry her, due to knowing she truly loves Lupin. Yeah, Zenigata was right to be paranoid. Fujiko explains that Howard has been ill for some time, and that she has her eye on a giant ruby Howard recently acquired. On the night of the full moon, said ruby bears a terrible curse, and no free Frogut. As Lupin tries to infiltrate, he spots a strange cloud enter Howard's room, resulting in its death. A month passes and Fujiko ends up suffering the same fever symptoms as Howard. Goemon decides to take matters into his own hands, but the only thing to break is Zantetsuken. The cloud appears again, but they're able to deflect it this time, revealing it to be a swarm of birds. As Lupin argues with Goemon about his choice in medicine, Jigen appears and discusses his findings. The ruby is laced in a hallucinogen known as Purple Andromeda, used in Haitian black magic rituals. Its point of origin is the eye of a god statue, and anyone who claims ownership will die a terrible death. Hearing this, Lupin forges a transfer of ownership to himself to make Fujiko safe. They reach the monument but have no real way of getting to it, as their attempt to hang glide in is foiled. An old man shows them a route built into the mountains, and the gang make their way through a large array of traps. Lupin throws the ruby back into place, but a voice calls for their deaths. Lupin recognises it as the old man's, who explains that his father was executed for allowing Arsene to get into the monument decades ago, and he's out for revenge. He summons a group of zombies. So, gods aren't real, but regenerating zombies are perfectly fine. Figuring their power is tied to the statue, Lupin moves to blow it up. The old man tries to remove the bomb and goes down with the statue, and as predicted, so do the zombies. Fujiko makes a recovery but feels down that the ruby was lost. Not as lost as suspected, seeing as Zenigata somehow got a hold of it. Enjoyable episode, even if a bit odd in some places, like say, having an army of zombies under one's control. Highlights are Lupin's disguising abilities managing to trick everyone in sight, as well as a callback to Lupin doing anything for Fujiko when her life is genuinely on the line. Earl Gabriel XIII invites Lupin to steal the Dracula's tear from him. His conditions are that he does so on board his blimp the Hindenburg under watch from 4 of the greatest detectives: Sherlock Holmes III, Philip Archer, Kosuke Kindani, and of course Zenigata. The Hindenburg launches, but there's no sign of Lupin. Gabriel makes his presence known to the detectives and gives them a hint to the location of the gem. It's in his eye. Well, better than hiding it in a cat's eye, I suppose. And said eye will seal with resin at midnight, forever keeping Lupin from stealing the gem. Time passes and Lupin finally sends a message via a group of hot air balloons, but still doesn't appear. Gabriel puts on a helmet for further protection and time ticks down to midnight. The lights go out and a gun fires, with Gabriel's body and an empty eye socket discovered when they come back on. Zenigata asks to see Archer's gun, knowing what he heard. Sherlock puts forth that Zenigata himself is a suspect, which, considering he also has a gun and it's one of Lupin's favourite disguises, certainly has merit. He then discovers that Gabriel's body is a dummy, with the blood actually being jam. The floor revolves and the real Gabriel surfaces. He shows a video of what happened when the lights went out, showing that the other detectives were working with each other. Sherlock is Lupin, Kindani Goemon and Archer Jigen. As for Fujiko, she was the butler and already stole the Dracula's tear. Lupin explains that he played the violin to relax Gabriel, which allowed Fujiko to make the switch. The gang get ready to make their escape, but the Hindenburg shutters are made of reinforced steel, deflecting their attacks. Gabriel leaves via a private plane, telling them the blimp is headed for Greenland, where a police force will arrest them. Zenigata suggests they give up, bringing the real butler out as he was found tied up, which gives Lupin an idea. The Hindenburg lands and everyone is led out to a police van. Zenigata then shouts at them, cuffed to the window of the Hindenburg. The gang swap disguises, becoming the police agents who led the real detectives out to protect their reputation. And of course, you don't name a blimp with that reference without it blowing up, as Lupin detonates a bomb he placed. It was interesting to have an episode where Lupin doesn't appear for the first half, even in an observing capacity. Well, kind of anyway. Gabriel also proved a good adversary, even if he did lose the Dracula's tear in the end, managing to outwit the gang for the most part, even if he was beaten by the power of disguise. We never do learn just when Lupin managed to get on board himself, though. Once more in Paris, Zenigata is discussing Lupin's plan to steal the Star of Versailles from its owner, Fugo. He plans to move at 3 AM the next day, but when Zenigata leaves, Lupin, looking somewhat more menacing, strikes. He steals the star and kills Fugo as midnight strikes. Things don't look good, as his prints were found at the scene and even Jigen and Goemon are suspicious, but Lupin insists it was an imposter. They decide to move ahead with their next target, the African Queen necklace owned by Count Zenial. Fujiko has beat them to it, charming Zenial into showing her the necklace. The Lupin imposter kills Zenial and attacks Fujiko as he escapes. The gang are annoyed at Fujiko for working independently, but are more concerned with Lupin, as the killer had his voice. Lupin meets with Dr. Nomil, a friend of his father's, and the others observe him from another room. As midnight strikes, Lupin seems to transform before their eyes, which No-Mill calls disguise syndrome, likening it to Jekyll and Hyde. As he sends them away, it's revealed that he's working with the imposter, the transformation being a projection, and Lupin left with a sleeping drug. Lupin wakes up in a hotel room and discovers he's sharing it with a dead woman. He watches a video he took showing him as the killer, and somehow getting multiple angles from a single camera. No-Mill tells Lupin of the disguise syndrome, leaving the imposter free to go on a spree of crime and murder in Lupin's name. Lupin falls into despair, asking Jigen and Goemon to kill him. His reflexes save him, and they decide they want no part of it after that. He tries hanging himself, but Fujiko intervenes. She sits with him until midnight, planning to kill him then herself if anything happens. The only thing that does happen is Lupin sneezing. Later, Lupin listens in on No-Mill and the imposter talking and plans a setup. No-Mill and Zenigata meet and head to where Lupin and Jigen are hiding out. Zenigata watches as they transform and sends a police force inside. The pair are arrested despite their claims not to be Lupin and Jigen. Lupin was the No-Mill who pointed Zenigata to the transforming pair, using a film and a pair of binoculars to trick Zenigata. All's well that ends well as we finish on Lupin's latest failed attempt at flirting with Fujiko. Kind of an odd, and likely coincidental note that the last two episodes both have midnight as a plot point. I can't help but think that the gang come off a bit gullible here though. Maybe it's due to them trusting No-Mill due to his background, but even then his introduction's a bit abrupt. Next time, a battle for oil, a movie parody, and a safe-cracking fight as we head to episode 20. Until then,